A man is no one. Before Arya can become anyone, this is what she's taught in order to join the Faceless Man, which is an order of assassins based in a city called Bravos. No name, no past, no nothing that you will call me, but that's just based on a show, right? No one's trying to join a secret league of faceless assassins in real life, right? Or at least I hope so. But what this storyline is referring to is something that's actually deeper, especially in terms of spiritual development, which is literally ego dissolution, but is described in a famous epic sociological story that we all know, or that most of us know. So today we're going to be breaking down that word, ego. This is a word that we use all of the time, but what is ego? Like, what actually is it? We use it to describe somebody that's arrogant. We use it to describe somebody that is confident. We use it in terms of psychology. We use it in terms of spirituality. It's the same word for like 4 completely different meanings. But in this video, we're going to be especially breaking down the deeper natures of ego. So ego comes from the Latin word I. That's essentially it, right? The dictionary definition is basically just the opinion that you hold about yourself, your conscious sense of identity, your sense of self-importance. That is basically ego at its most surface level. In everyday conversation, we use it sort of like a dial. If you turn it up too much, you're egotistical, you're arrogant, you're conceited. But if we turn it to a healthy level, then you're self-confident, you have self-esteem, as well as self-respect. Now, from a psychological and a spiritual perspective, the ego is more so the whole of your thoughts and your emotions that you believe to be you. Now, for spiritual development purposes, ego means something way more than just your personality, you being cocky, or you being confident. Ego in this context means the false self. So from casual conversation to psychology and even spirituality, it's tension within this word. But what is it? Like, how is it affecting your everyday life? Keep that question in the back of your mind as we continue to go through and break down this word, ego. Now, to actually understand ego, we got to go into the psychology of it, because this is where the actual structure of it comes from. Psyche. First thing that you need to know is that the psyche is not the brain. Many of us get that mixed up, but your brain can influence your psyche. The psyche actually comes from the Greek word soul. Now, what it does is it describes the totality of your mind, conscious and unconscious. It's the seat of your reasoning, your feelings, and your behavior. So ego is just a part of that psyche, right? It's not the whole thing. It's a piece of a bigger thing. Now, within the psychological understanding of ego, there's 2 maps that you need to understand. And we're going to briefly go over it in this video. The Freud's map and the Jung's map. Now, Freud broke down the psyche into 3 parts. You have the ID, which is the unconscious part, which is pure instinct, pure drives and desires, and pure impulses. Then you got the superego. This is like your internalized parent. So it rewards you with pride when you do something good, and it punishes you with guilt when you do something bad. Now, stuck in the middle of ID and superego is ego. This is the conscious part of you that is doing all of the work. It is basically your conscious referee. So from Freud's view, the whole job of the ego is to mediate between what the ID wants and what reality is actually going to allow you to have. So ID, the unconscious part of you, the impulses, the drives, wants it right now. The superego is going to judge you for wanting it. And the ego is the middle negotiator between the two. Now, Carl Jung looked at this viewpoint a little bit differently. I would say that Jung's point of view is more spiritual, while you can say that Freud's point of view was more psychological. However, both of them still operate within the realms of psychology. For Jung, the ego is the center of conscious awareness. It's your everyday thoughts, your memories, your basic sense of identity that you will call you, the awareness that is currently watching this video right now. Underneath ego, you have the personal unconscious, which is forgotten memories, suppressed stuff, and emotional complexes that are specific to your own personal life. And under that, at the deepest layer, is collective unconscious. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because Jung believed that this layer is not personal at all. It's universal, and it's shared by literally every human being on this planet. And it's made up of inherited patterns called archetypes that shape how we perceive the world, regardless of what culture you're from or where you grew up in the world. So even just within psychology, ego is not just one thing. For Freud, it's a referee under pressure. For Jung, it's the top layer of something way deeper. Now let's talk about the spiritual side of things, aka the false self. This is where things really get interesting, because spirituality takes the same word and does something completely different with it. In spirituality, your ego doesn't mean your healthy identity at all. Ego here means the false self, which just means the illusory sense of separation, the individual self. It's the part of your mind that is constantly running in the background, worrying about your past, worrying about your future, protecting your social status, and defending your sense of identity, who you believe yourself to be. And a lot of the suffering that we experience from this viewpoint comes from this constant state of needing to defend ourselves, needing to defend this ego. So the spiritual journey in this example is what traditions would like to call becoming a fully realized human being. This is moving from ordinary awareness to a deeper, more direct knowing, aka gnosis. Gnosis is a faculty of nous. The meaning of nous can be broken down as cosmic intelligence. It is the basis of truth, understanding, and deeper knowing. So this spiritual development journey is largely dedicated to dissolving the egoic self. But, and this part matters, it is not treated like the enemy. The ego is not the enemy. It's actually a necessary tool for interacting with the physical world. You need the ego to set boundaries and to function in society. It's not saying to just go out in this world and go to your job without a sense of self. The actual goal is to shift. It is not to destroy the ego, but to transcend it, moving your primary identity from something that is more smaller, aka me and just this body, to an understanding of something that is more inclusive, something that is more expansive, something that is more connected to everything. In esoteric understandings, this is the seat of I am. But here's the twist, and what many people don't see coming, is that the spiritual path can actually build you up a brand new ego, but one that is based in the sense of enlightenment now. This is called spiritual ego. And honestly, it is one of the most hardest parts of the egos to catch and dissolve, because it is dressed up in the language of spirituality now, which means it is disguising itself in that which you are understanding more of. It shows up as a subtle superiority, right? A judgmental attitude towards people that you would say is less spiritually evolved than you. And if your ego wasn't balanced to begin with before you started your spiritual journey, this new version can come back more inflated than what you originally started with. So why does this happen? Because ego at its core is the process of identification. It's mentally clinging on to an experience, a belief, or a label and calling it me or mine. So say you have a real profound spiritual insight. Your mind is going to grab that insight and mold a brand new identity around it. And what happened here is your ego just found a brand new costume to wear. So the point of spirituality is not superiority. It is not to become more enlightened or more knowledgeable than the average person. And so here's the trap within the trap, because even believing that I have no ego is ego itself. Because let's say you do all of this spiritual work, you come into terms with all of these different profound insights, and now you believe I have no ego. Well, that belief that I have no ego now because of this work I've done is still a separate self claiming that achievement, right? You can't get around it that easy. This can also, in subtle terms, show up as spiritual bypassing, which is basically using spiritually sounding words to avoid feeling hard emotions. So you've probably heard the sayings like everything happens for a reason, or let go and let God. The universe has a plan for you, and God works in mysterious ways. These aren't inherently bad, right? The people that say this, they mean well, but they can actually do damage, because what's happening is these words, they dismiss real grief, real anger, real fear, real emotional problems that need to be dealt with rather than just dismissed. They oversimplify something that is deeply complex and instead shift responsibility onto something that's fate or that's destiny, rather than just actually offering human support. In simpler terms, it is absent of heart. It's just words said at somebody instead of actually sitting with somebody to talk through the problem. So this is where the test of real awakening comes in, because real, true awakening isn't a status symbol. It's not a leaderboard. There's no hierarchy to it. There is no being better or worse. There is no being more or less awakened than the next person. So the moment that spiritual growth starts to become a competition, just know that that is when ego is coming back in to try to take its throne within your mind. Let's zoom all the way out for a second. If we understanding it from the terms of psychology as well as spirituality, or the basic sense of ego, there is one understanding that ties it all together, and it's pretty simple. Can you guess it? I'm gonna give you 5 seconds. So if you said that ego is a product of thoughts, you would be right. Ego is the mind's habit of identifying with its own thoughts. It is the ongoing story of I, me, or mine that is stitched together by your memories, your judgments, and your beliefs. So without thought, there is no ego. But just to reiterate this point, having no ego would not make for a more full life either. So there's a quote that I came across from a book that I really like on this topic. Having an ego is what it feels like to be thinking without knowing that you are thinking. Now really understand this quote, because it's not thinking that is the problem. Thinking about the past, imagining a future, none of these things are inherently bad, right? The problem is thinking without realizing that you're doing it. So you're fully fused with your thoughts instead of watching them come and go. So we want to create separation between awareness and ego, aka your thoughts, and just being. So meditation isn't just about shutting up the mind. The mind is basically an automated machine. It's going to do what it's going to do, which is to think. Meditation is about bringing yourself to awareness, the state of awareness, and to observe the mind without grabbing a hold of the thoughts that are coming in. So behind all of the thinking, behind all of the thoughts, behind all of the imagination, you realize that it is something that is eternal, something that is quiet, deeper, that just sits right underneath all of the noise. When you really observe it, it is just empty space, a simple, aware sense of being. So what does the ego actually want at the end of the day? Recognition, status, validation. It's the voice that's telling you that you need to do more, have more, and be more just to be considered worthy. It thrives on comparison. It builds your whole identity out of your achievements, your possessions, and even your failures. But it's not actually fixed, right? It shifts depending on the circumstances in your life and the thoughts that happen to be operating within that moment. So the problem is not that ego exists. The problem is we believe these thoughts to be permanent stories. The problem is our attachment to believing that the stories that we hold are permanent. We cling on to these stories. We cling on to this sense of identity and we defend it. And that's exactly where anxiety comes from. The dissatisfaction, the competition, the need to defend this thing that is not actually yours to hold on to. So here is how you reframe it. The ego is not something you need to fight against or to dismantle when we talk about dissolve. It's simply something that you need to learn to see through. You need to recognize that it is a temporary construction of thoughts and not some fixed, unchangeable truth about who you are. As you realize this, the grip that it has on you begins to loosen. And I think that this is something that we see, especially with celebrities and social media. It's this constant need to protect your image, an image that you do not have complete control over, as much as the ego wants to control how people view you. So something can only become you when you place yourself inside that box, when you decide to attach onto it and say that that is me. It is completely up to your choice on your identity. But if you choose not to hold on to the things that have happened, what you have, the amount of recognition that you get within this world, this is how you allow yourself to be flexible as you move through this world and not become fixated on a certain idea of self. And so this doesn't mean that you just stop caring about anything and stop wanting success or healthy relationships. You can still enjoy and go after all of those things. You just stop needing it, right, in order to hold your identity together for you. You stop needing these past stories and these things that happened to you in the past to hold together this sense of identity that you feel if you do not attach to these things, it will all come crumbling down. So this insight basically allows you to reconnect with your true self, which is just awareness. It's the deeper intelligence that lies beyond the stories the ego tells. So just keep in mind that the ego is just a product of thought. When you could become aware and observant of the thinking, that is when you can start to create distance between your ego and simple awareness. You are not your stories. You are not your past. You are not your achievements. You are not your possessions. You are not your failures. Coming to that realization is what it means to live beyond the ego. Now, understand, you will never get rid of the ego. And as we discussed, you don't want to completely get rid of the ego. The ego is your interface between spirit and the physical world. But in order to reduce suffering, in order to not be attached to the thoughts and emotions and to believe those to be us, we have to create separation between awareness and our thoughts, as well as our emotions and impulses. So, do animals have an ego? Now, if we're talking about a basic sense of individual identity and self-awareness, yeah, some animals do. My research says that chimpanzees, dolphins, elephants, lions, wolves, and even your house cat show signs of territorial, status-seeking, and distinct personalities. But as far as the complex human ego, the full of self-criticism, social anxiety, and how you're being perceived, that is what seems to be uniquely to us. Now, plants, on the other hand, they have no ego. Well, they have no brain, no nervous system, so no sense of self. Plants operate purely off of automatic survival responses. So to end out this video, let's take it back to the word I. Maybe it's a referee mediating between instinct and conscience. Maybe it's just the surface layer of something deeper. Or maybe it's just a story that your mind keeps telling itself over and over. Either way, now you know what you're looking at when you look at you. Hope you got something out of this video. Leave a comment, like, or subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.